Hello and welcome to Weekly MTG. Today we've got an awesome show because it's two shows in one.
Two shows in one. You get two shows for the price.
Two shows in one.
It's a new year. You get two shows for the price of one.
You do. We
That's what
promised
happens.
you an Ian Duke and an Ethan Fleischer to talk about Theros Beyond Death, and we will deliver on both of those gentlemen. They're actually sitting right over there off camera, waiting patiently for their turn. But first,
it's me.
First, it's Michelle Sutterfield, and she is our influencer manager. So if you are a streamer or a fancy person or
an
just someone we
influencer.
like,
Fancy person.
A fancy person.
Fancy
If you
person.
wear a monocle and a top
and
hat,
a top hat,
and
Then you know who I
and
am.
you know
You know
exactly
who
who Michelle is.
she's gonna talk about an exciting announcement today for a new creator program. So we're gonna spend the first part of the show on that. But first, Steve's gonna do the news.
It's news time. It's news time. It's news time. Yes, indeed. We've got a little bit of news for you today, as we do every week here on the show. But this week is especially exciting because today we revealed the final rosters for the 2020 partial season Rivals League for Magic, and you can see their names up on the screen there. This is also available via magic.gg. Many names on there that people are going to be able to recognize. This is not going to be an easy Rivals League. There are a lot of names there that are extremely recognizable, some very good Magic players there. I'm sure many of our viewers will be very familiar with a lot of them. Some of them were MPL last season. Some of them are new to this this top-tier competitive play that we debuted last year, and this is the first year for the Rivals League, so congratulations to all of the members of the 2020 partial season inaugural Rivals League. That also leads us to another league that we have, the Magic Pro League.
I've heard of it.
Heard of it, it's out there. These are the members of the 2020 partial season roster of the Magic Pro League, and again, there are a lot of really recognizable names on there, no surprise. You got some former world champions, some former Hall of Fame, some current Hall of Famers. Read somebody. I don't. No idea who that is, but it's we've got some really great names on there, so we should look forward to seeing some incredible competitive play out of those folks. And if you want competitive play, if you want to see some of the best of the 2019 season, you should tune in to the World Championship of Magic. Magic World Championship 26 coming up in February, and we just launched an amazing campaign, #FindYourChampion at magic.gg. You can pick the person that you think is most likely to win the whole thing, the entire Magic World Championship 26, and you can get some pretty cool rewards depending on how deep they go in the tournament. So check it out, magic.gg, #FindYourChampion.
Thank you, Steve.
You're
for
welcome,
the
Blake.
news. Yeah, thanks. But let's get to our guest.
Yeah.
Steve and I could sit here and talk for a while, but we're not going to.
We do very often. But
We're gonna. Michelle has many things to say because
I
this
do,
is a
yeah.
really cool announcement. So why don't
It
you
is.
give us an overview of what's happening?
Sure thing. First, I want to preface by just saying that we have probably the best creator community ever.
you can take the probably out of there. I think
Yeah, okay, good. Because I also agree with that. I'm putting in the property because it's like, maybe, but no, definitely
legal
the best.
reasons,
Yes,
yeah.
right? One of the top 3 best communities ever. No, we have an amazing creator community. They foster each other. They help each other's content. They're creating amazing things with Magic all of the time. And we've had a really great about 2 years now, kind of fostering that with them. But we know that we needed to make a next step for that. And so I'm so happy to announce that today we are officially announcing the Magic Creator Program. And we're doing this in partnership with Stream Elements. So if you actually go to your Stream Elements platform right now, if you look on the left-hand side of the screen, you will see a new partnerships tab that showed up.
Does it look like that?
It does look like that. And in that programs tab, you will see the North America Creator Program there, and then we're also going to have one for Europe as well. So this ongoing creator program is going to be quite amazing. Inside of the program, we have set up multiple challenges that you can participate in that will not only enhance your content, but it will also encourage community and interactive play with your community that way.
So I'm guessing it looks something like this.
It does. Some of the challenges are going to be automatically tracked through the Stream Elements platform. Other challenges will be manually tracked by us here at Wizards, and the streamer or YouTuber themselves will need to submit, some sort of link or an image that goes along with that. But all of these challenges will also allow the creator to earn a reward for either themselves or their community. So the challenges will be based upon something that is either for themselves to enhance their content, and then the reward will be something personal for them. And right now, the two rewards that we have set up in the system, the personal one is for gems, so it will help the creator continue to be making content. And then any challenge that has a aspect to it that helps the community will have a community reward. And those community rewards are ICRs. And so with those challenges, the creator will actually get a bulk number of codes per challenge, and the codes will either redeem for 1 card, 3 cards, or 5 cards. And so it's a really cool program that just encourages everyone to get together and create some really fun content. Now, I do want to make sure that everyone knows that this program is available now. You can go in and you can apply for it right away. However, it's only going to be in beta right now because it is a new program, and we want to make sure that we're going to be testing it correctly with a certain amount of streamers and YouTubers and Facebook streamers and, Mixer streamers as well. So this program's open to a lot more than just Twitch. And we also know that MTG Arena is going to be taking a majority of that content for this creator program. But this is a program that we're going to be wanting to build to go beyond that. So we want all sorts of Magic creators to apply. And when we look at their applications, depending on how many applications we're seeing from the different kinds of creators that we are getting in here, we'll create challenges based on that.
Okay. Now, are there any requirements to apply?
The requirements is that you are being an actual content creator. So we don't want to disencourage anyone that is, maybe only bringing in 5 viewers per their stream, or is only able to stream a few hours every single night or create 1 video a week. That's still constant creation. We understand that there's a lot of passionate content creators out there, and they're trying their best to create the content, and we do want to support them in this. However, we also want to make sure that we are supporting the right kind of creators, the people that are putting in the time and the effort. So if you are showing that time and the effort, and we see that in your application when we go through and look at your content, you will be considered in the application process.
Yep. Now we have a little bit more to chat about this, but I also, in the meantime, want to encourage you, if you have questions for Michelle, to put in chat.
Please.
Put them in chat. I'm watching chat right now, and so I will ask them as they pop up. But then I had another question. So you mentioned that it's for North America right now. We're adding Europe. Are there going to be other regions added in the future?
We do want to add in all of our regions that we support creators for. We have worked that out with Stream Elements. The deadline on that is not yet figured out because, again, this is going to be a beta program, and we still have a lot of kinks to work out. But we have worked it out in the contract with them to regionalize creator programs.
Okay. Question from chat, is this only for streamers?
No, if you are a YouTube creator, if you're also streaming on Facebook and Mixer, we do encourage you to apply. If you are creating podcasts, you're interested in making cosplay content on video, we do encourage everyone to apply to this because we want to make sure that this program can support the majority of all of our content creators.
That's the reason why it's called a creator program, not a streaming program.
Absolutely, and the fact that we called it the Gathering Creator Program, not just Arena.
Another question from chat. We're getting a bunch of good questions.
Great.
So we're just going to start going through them.
Good job, chat.
Yay.
Good job.
Do you have to fill out a new application, or does the existing creator app cover them?
That's a very good question. Yes, you will need to fill out a new application, which is through Stream Elements. Everyone that has applied for the featured creators in the past should have received an email if they're part of our subscription service. For the newsletters, they should have already received an email with a direct link on how to apply to that right now. But this also brings up an interesting point of the featured creators. We do have quite a few people already scheduled to be a featured creator. Now, obviously, this is going to be changing things a bit with the creator program. So I want to make sure that everyone knows that those that are scheduled but have not yet been featured, starting with this week forward, the feature will still happen for you, and in fact, that's going to be your introduction into the beta of the creator program moving forward. So if you are featured, that's when you will also get your acceptance into the program.
Yep. And I also want to point out that a lot of this information, if written form helps more, it's on dailymtg.com.
Yes.
It should be up right now. I hit publish before we went on the stream, but I didn't check it. So it should be up there, so you can see all the details and everything there. Next question from chat. Is this program only available for Stream Elements users?
It is right now because the program is run through Stream Elements. We have such a huge community that needed a lot of fostering, and a lot of that needed to be automated so that we can support the creators the best we could. And the way to do that is we needed to find a partner that can make a program for us that we can customize in such a way that we can automate a lot of that. And we went through a lot of different partners to look at and to see where we can make this program, and Stream Elements came forward with the best option for us. And in fact, this program that they have made and now introducing themselves on their end is something that we built with them from the ground up.
Great. Before we go to the next question, producer Sean, can you put up the graphic showing the interface again so that people know where to go on Steam Elements? And then Michelle, roughly how many creators are you looking to accept during the beta period?
That's still to be to be determined, to be quite honest, depending on how many of the EU applicants we're going to get as well. But we're looking to be around 100, obviously, give or take, depending on the kind of creators that we will have apply to this and who we want to be testing with during this beta phase.
Okay, that makes sense. What are you most excited about for this program?
Is that a chat question or a Blake question?
That's a Blake question.
It's always a Blake question.
It's a Blake question.
It's a good Blake question.
This is like, it's a personal question. I'm very excited that we finally have a program where we are going to be able to give ongoing support for this community. The support that we've been able to give has been great so far, but really once you're featured, it kind of takes a while again for you to be featured again because of the amount of applications that we've had to be featured. And so this allows us to finally get everyone into a program where they can always feel like they're being engaged with and in the community, and something for them to always try to work towards and to be getting rewards for. And so the challenges we'll have new challenges weekly, monthly, even quarterly. Some of them will be even longer than that. And so there will always be something to work towards.
Okay. Now, someone messaged in chat that they went to the article and it wasn't quite up yet. I messaged my producer. So hopefully that'll be up and readable soon. That is all I have for questions from chat right now.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you, chat. That was
you, chat.
easy.
Michelle, if they have more questions, what's the best way to get them answered?
After this stream, I'm actually going to be doing an AMAA on my Twitter account. So I'll be answering a whole bunch of questions there. But you know, Blake, I'm not quite finished talking about this program yet.
Oh, well, go ahead.
Because we have another announcement that has to do with this program.
Oh my gosh.
Two announcements.
Crazy.
Two announcements in our 2 times the show. Okay,
Yeah.
go on.
I know, this is crazy. So also announcing today is, actually I think this might be my favorite part, other than an ongoing program, is
Okay, so
that
you lied to me.
I did. It was a little white lie, or maybe shall I say
Little
green,
blue lie?
a little green lie.
Little
Okay.
red lie?
Because we are announcing the Magic the Gathering GREENLIGht Fund.
That sounds cool.
It does sound cool,
What
right?
exactly is the Magic the Gathering GREENLIGHT Fund?
All right, the GREENLIGHT Fund is a program that we are dedicating $1 million towards.
You're supposed to
$1 million. There we go. I know, and you're doing the close one too.
Yeah.
We're dedicating upwards of $1 million to seed fund Magic Series in 2020. And in order to apply for this, this is also going to be through the Creator Program. Now, we understand that the beta phase is only going to be allowing a certain amount of creators into the program, so we are not going to actually have the applications for the GREENLIGHT Fund available until full launch later this year. That all being said, we wanted to announce it because we know this is going to be a very big deal, and we know that you're going to need to put a lot of work into the proposal before you even apply, so that you are, putting your best foot forward as a content creator. So $1 million, that's a lot of money.
It is.
And when we say seed fund, we really mean it. So we are going to be dedicating, it could be anywhere between like $5,000 or maybe even $250,000 towards someone's proposal. And this is to help kickstart a new Magic series. And so when people are actually proposing what their series should be, they should be thinking about that. They should be thinking about how they're going to be using the money. How are they going to get additional support? How will they support their program, their series, after the seed fund has run out? Those are all of the things that we're going to be looking at in those essentially business proposals for these series.
Yeah.
And additionally, the Greenlight Fund is not going to be geared towards only Magic the Gathering Arena. In fact, it's not going to just be geared towards Magic gameplay. Anything considering with Magic, cosplay, story, all of the things, as long as we feel like there's a lot of support there and something that can combine with our marketing and business plans, we're going to consider those applications.
Great.
There's a lot of Magic content out there that I know fans like to consume, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
It's cool that everybody gets everybody's the way. A lot of different ways to enjoy Magic. It's cool that everybody has a shot.
You
right?
know, there are a ton of great content creators out there in
Yes.
Magic, and a lot of times what you'll see is they have trouble getting off the ground. Because, not because their content or their idea or their talent isn't there, but because it can be expensive just to buy microphones, to buy cameras,
Absolutely.
to buy the stuff that you need to get going.
To find the time also.
To find the time, all of that.
A lot of these people have full-time jobs, you know, it's tough. Yeah.
And so I'm really excited to see what kind of content and who we're going to be featuring a year from now.
Yes, I'm so excited for that as well. I mean, in theory, of course this is exciting, but when we actually start seeing the applications for the Greenlight Fund start rolling in, I think we're all going to be a little bit more giddy at that moment, because we're going to see just how large the creative of our community is. Without those boundaries of thinking, oh, well, I can't do this because of this or this reason. We are going to unleash a whole bunch here, and we're excited to see that and help it grow.
Yeah. I feel like we're going to be doing a lot of, why didn't we think of
Yeah.
this?
We do that a lot already.
We should have been doing this.
And that's okay, In fact, please
Those are
make
going
us
to be the
think
strongest
that way.
pitches. If we're like, we should have done
We
this.
should have thought of this, yeah.
Let's have them do it,
Yep.
Any new questions in
No
chat
new
with
questions,
this,
a lot of excitement.
Oh,
So,
awesome. I'm so
A lot of
happy.
people seem really excited about this, so that's great. Are any other announcements?
Do you have a third one?
Dun, dun, dun.
You have a third one?
I don't.
Two is really good, though.
Yeah.
I guess I'm 2 for 2, chat. Am I two for two right
for
now?
two?
2 for 2.
I'll give you 2 for 2. Yeah.
Cool.
So, thank you, Michelle,
Yes, of
for
course.
coming on. We are not done.
No.
Like we said, 2 shows
2 segments today.
for the price of 1.
Yeah.
So we're gonna show you a little guessing game.
Yeah.
Guess the Theros card. We were playing it before the show. It's not easy.
It's not. Some of them
Even
are,
though
but a lot of
we've
them are.
literally
Yeah.
been playing with. And when we come back, we're going to have Ethan Fleischer and Ian Duke come on to talk all about Theros Beyond Death. Any questions you might have about Theros Beyond Death, they can answer them. Anything and everything.
And everything.
But they have some stories to share. We'll answer your questions. So we'll be back in just a couple minutes, and we'll see you then.
Thank you.
Welcome back. This is not Michelle.
No, new people are on the couch now.
We have on the far right Ian Duke, and a little closer to us, Ethan Fleischer. And they were two of the more instrumental people in making Theros Beyond Death happen. Ethan, you were the vision lead, is that correct?
That's right, led the vision design team.
Yep. And Ian, what was?
I was on the set design team, and also there was a period of a couple weeks where I was like an interim set lead while someone was out of office.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically they know all the things
Yeah.
about all the things.
So we're going to talk about some of the things, and you'll ask questions
Yeah.
about others of the things.
Ask us questions. We've got a list already that we gathered on Twitter, plus some things they want to talk about as well, some cool stories to share with you all, but feel free to put your questions in chat, and we'll get to them as we can. Let's start out. We just ended. Let's talk about Escape. So we were talking a little bit before about how Escape came into the set a little later in the process. Can you talk about how
Yeah,
that
that's
happened?
right. So earlier on in the set, as Ethan handed off from Vision, there was a different mechanic that, called Stygian, which basically divided the battlefield in two, and creatures could be either on one side or the other of the river. I think we've done a couple articles about it, so I won't go into
Ethan
too much
wrote. So
detail.
if you check out Daily MTG, Ethan wrote one, and then Mark Rosewater also wrote one.
But during the set design process, when we moved away from that mechanic eventually, Mark Gottlieb, who was eventually the end of process set lead, he decided that we needed something new and splashy that players had never seen before, and he came up with Escape as the idea, which naturally fits the flavor of horrendous monsters escaping from the underworld and such. And it was a very ambitious mechanic, I can say, as someone who works on the balance side of things.
Yep.
There are just so many different numbers to tune on the cards, and how much mana do we want to make it cost when you escape it versus when you cast it up front? How many cards do you need to exile? So when I first saw the mechanic, I was like, uh-oh, this is going to be trouble. This is going to be a lot of work to get right. But on the other hand, we really like mechanics like that have a lot of what we call knobs that you can tune to adjust the power level. It means that it's sort of more work or more difficulty getting them to the right spot, but you can more finely tune the power level of the cards in the end. So it was definitely exciting to work on, and became a really, really important part of the set. Obviously, it needs a lot of structure around it, ways to get extra cards in your graveyard, all those sorts of things. So it was really kind of a fun, centerpiece of the puzzle that kind of enveloped the whole set.
Okay.
Yeah, it really fits thematically into what the story of Theros Beyond Death is about, which is Elspeth escaping from the underworld. Like her breaking out of jail is the thing we knew was going to happen from well before we even started designing the set. It's like Elspeth is getting out, and so I was so happy that we were able to land on a design for the Elspeth card that used the escape mechanic.
Now, from what I understand, let's talk about Elspeth since it's up on the screen right now. All minus abilities. Now we've done that kind of ish before, but certainly not in a card that was meant to come back. Did this card start out this way?
So once we had the escape mechanic, we knew right away that Elspeth had to be one of the cards that used it. And that's just such an exciting hook for a Planeswalker that would behave unlike any other Planeswalker we've done before. So we want to take the opportunity. And once we knew that Elspeth was going to have escape, it sort of made sense to play into the idea that she would tick down in loyalty pretty quickly and then go to the graveyard, and then she'd be able to escape and come back out again. So the idea that she would have all minus abilities came up pretty early in the process of exploring what does it mean to have a Planeswalker that has escape.
Okay. Now, Ethan, I want to talk about two of the other marquee escape cards from the set, the Titans.
Right.
So there are only two. Was that where things started off?
That was not where things started off. How it started out was I knew we were going to focus more on the underworld this time because we kind of saved most of the underworld stuff from the first time we went to Theros. We're like, if we ever come back here, we're going to want to leave something to use. So we knew we were going to the underworld. And in Greek mythology, trapped in the underworld, locked up there, are the Titans, the sort of ancient parents of the Greek gods who were too destructive and too dangerous and too mean to be allowed to wander around outside.
They were in timeout.
They were in timeout. And so I realized that, we should definitely have Titans here, but they couldn't just be regular Titans because we'd already done that. There was, there were some Titans in the original Theros. So these ones had to be Elder Titans. The Elder creature type is something we use for an ancient primordial gargantuan entity like the Elder Dragons or the Elder Dinosaurs. So in the initial handoff from vision to set design, we had fewer gods and more titans. We had a full cycle of titans at Mythic Rare. As the set continued to evolve, people decided that we needed to have more of the gods represented, and it was too much of a tight fit to have 2 full cycles at Mythic Rare. Like, you only get 15 Mythic Rare cards in a Magic set, and filling 10 of those slots with cycles was going to be pretty hard to implement.
Didn't leave much room for
So
anything else.
we decided to get the best 2 Titan designs out there. And of course, they have the escape mechanic, because that's what they're doing in the story. They were locked up in the underworld, and then they escape. And I like to give people part of what they want, so that they send me messages demanding more Magic cards, because that keeps me employed.
True.
Good
True.
point. Blake, you currently are, or you were running a draft deck that was making good use of Croxa.
Yeah.
On
And
Magic the Gathering Arena.
These are not weak cards.
It's a nice use of understatement there.
Yeah. Even these have a unique ability in that they die the first time you cast them if you're casting them from your hand. How did you arrive at this sort of overall design?
So if I recall correctly, I think it was Mark Gottlieb who submitted these designs, and it kind of went hand in hand with the development of Escape. These were among the first cards to use Escape or an Escape-like mechanic. And his idea was that these would be creatures that could only be cast from your graveyard. If you tried to cast them from your hand, they would just go away right away. And that the idea was you'd get them in your graveyard, then cast them from there. And so he decided that they needed a way to get in your graveyard in the first place. So he kind of came up with the idea of, like, you'd almost cast it like a spell. It would have a one-shot effect and then go to your graveyard. And then if you wanted it to come back permanently as a creature, you'd have to cast it from the graveyard.
Just like your favorite Magic card, Blake.
Ball Drifter?
Yeah. Right, because all of the Titans have
That's
what we
why
call...
I like these. They're basically Ball Drifters.
We call the trigger that the Titans have the Titan trigger after the Magic 2011
Right.
Titans.
Oh,
Whenever
yeah.
they enter the battlefield or attack, something happens. So if you evoke it as you do a Mold Drifter, you get that enter the battlefield trigger.
I knew I liked them for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It
so
just,
actually,
it just felt right when you were casting them, right?
So interestingly, actually, the original version of the Titans didn't have the attack trigger. They just had the enter the battlefield trigger, again, as a way to, like, kind of cast them like a spell and they'd go to your graveyard. But after they were in the file for a bit, someone made the note of, like, hey, it would be really cool if these had the Titan attack trigger that the M11 Titans had, as kind of a callback to that. And we liked the idea, so we added it on there. Also, they both ended up being 6/6s, just like the original Titans, which is something we always knew if we needed to for balance purposes, we could, move the costs around and move the power and toughness around.
Yeah.
But we preferred to have them end up 6/6 if we could get the rest of the numbers right around that, and it worked out well in the end. The last thing I want to mention about the Titans is that having strong multicolored mythics was a goal here too. We knew that with Devotion in the set, a lot of the set was going to be about playing monocolor, so we wanted to give players a couple reasons to go into multicolor as well.
Fair enough. Let's move on to something that came back with Theros that was pretty exciting, which were sagas. And one of the more exciting ones is Kiora Best's the Sea God, the biggest out the. It costs 7 mana.
It's large.
Yeah, Ethan, you had some stories about this.
Yeah, so we originally introduced sagas in Dominaria as a way to sort of explore the cultural breadth of all of these different factions in Dominaria and tell some of the old stories from Dominaria. Sagas are always enchantments, so when we were coming to Theros, like, Theros has an enchantment theme, and so we seriously considered sagas. Like, this could really work. There aren't as many stories from Theros' background, right? There have been 2 novels written in Theros and a few short stories, but Theros also draws heavily from Greek mythology, so we can kind of allude to some classic Greek myths here. So we thought there was enough space to do sagas, and as it turned out, there was enough space. Kiora Best the Sea God is an example of a more Magic-specific story. This is referring to a story written by Kelly Diggs about the time that Kiora, the Merfolk Planeswalker, went to Theros to try to get Eryximethys, this huge Leviathan, and Thassa, the Sea God, objected and beat the crap out of Kiora and threw her bident at her. And Kiora said, thanks for the bident, and then Plains walked away. And so that's why in War of the Spark, you can see Kiora has this bident.
Yeah.
She's got the Sea God's bident, and she's got it forever now. She is now the greatest thief in the multiverse.
Pour one out for Dak.
Yep.
Ian, this card is very powerful. How did it end up there?
Well, I mean, we like the idea of having a big, powerful saga. You know, it's telling, you know, a great story there as well. And it was just kind of a natural fit to have, you know, a huge creature representing, you know, a sea monster and such. Actually, funny story about the card is that we ended up at Mythic Rare on the card, right?
Yep.
At a certain point in the process, it was actually a rare, and it was the most complained about card in Limited because of just how powerful it is. So I won't say we then immediately kicked it up to Mythic Rare, but I'll put it that as we were sort of massaging the file and moving stuff around, we saw the opportunity to move this card up to Mythic because we thought it would be a better fit for Limited play there, and
Yep.
I'm glad we ended up that way.
Okay. Speaking of the most complained about rare, one of the
Good segue here.
yeah
Good
one
segue,
Of,
Blake.
well, one
That
of
was a
the
good one.
when chat was talking through some of their initial cards that they wanted to ask about, Dream Trawler
Yes.
was one of them, and Dream Trawler, control finisher, the card.
Yep.
Talk a bit about how this card came to be.
Okay, so first of all, I will acknowledge, yes, this card is very powerful and limited. Yes, we were very aware of that. This card actually was added to the file later on in the process during the FFL, the Future League period, where we identified a need for a control finisher in Standard. And the problem we were trying to address, if you think back to the days of Teferi, Hero of Dominaria in Standard, that a lot of the control decks completely eschewed win conditions, and they would just, you know, deck the opponent out naturally or loop Teferis, things like that. And that's a gameplay pattern that we really try to avoid. And it can be a tricky thing because if the control finishers that we give you aren't strong enough, the control players will just choose to play no win condition instead and just try to win by prolonging the game indefinitely and milling out the opponent. So we need to give you powerful enough win conditions that they're actually worth spending a deck slot on. And this is where we needed to end up for this card to be right for Standard. And again, we know that's very powerful and limited there, and we looked for opportunities to maybe this could be a Mythic Rare instead, but in the end, the set structure just didn't allow for it. So something we were aware of, but this is where we had to end up.
Makes sense. All right, so we've talked a lot about power levels so far. Let's talk a little bit more about the story and some of the top-down designs, because this was a very top-down set. There were a couple cards that Ethan called out as particularly top-down. Let's talk, oh God, I'm going to butcher this name. Illyrios Enraptured.
Right. So this is an allusion to the Greek myth about Narcissus, who was this extremely beautiful young man, and he came upon this still pool and saw his reflection there and could not look away because he was so gorgeous, and I believe he just starved to death staring at his own reflection. So we tried to capture that story in card form here. So this card can't untap, it's stuck there as long as its reflection is there. And then the reflection token that it makes has the power and toughness reversed. It's a 3/2 rather than a 2/3 because, of course, it's a mirror image.
This is a really clever card. I've enjoyed seeing this played. I enjoyed seeing this when it was.
It's not weak either. Like this
No,
is
it's
good.
strong.
It's
Like,
a good card.
I like this card in Limited. You can do some shenanigans with blinking it and flickering it, stuff like that. Yeah.
And
Here
funny
for
fact, people pointed out that the token having the reflected power and toughness of the creature, it actually didn't start out that way. That was something that was added fairly late on in the process. I think Sam Stoddard submitted this card early on.
That was my idea,
Yeah.
because during the Great Designer Search, the hiring process that I was hired from, I was playing around with reflection tokens, and they had this reverse power toughness. So I was like, I remember this situation.
All right. I see how it is. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Nice. So next, let's look at another top-down design, Mirror Shield.
Right.
The Gorgon Shield.
Yeah.
Right. So this is another illusion. I think it was, I want to say Perseus?
That sounds
Perseus
right,
the
yeah.
one? Yeah. So Perseus defeated Gorgon, Medusa, the Gorgon, and part of how he did that was he had this shield that was polished to a mirror sheen. I think he just used it so he didn't have to look directly at her, but like the cooler story is that it reflects the death gaze of the Gorgon back to it. I designed this card for the original Theros set It didn't make it into that. I tried to get into Born of the Gods. It didn't make it through the crucible of design development there. I tried to put it into Journey into Nyx. It still didn't make it. I was like, I'm getting this card done. This is the time-honored Mark Rosewater strategy of just outlast the naysayers. Keep doing it until it works.
Fourth time's the charm.
That's right. Fourth time's the charm for this card. So I realize it's not a very powerful effect. Hosing Death Touch creatures, fairly corner case thing, but the flavor is just
So good.
And then I want to look at two other cards in the top-down area, although one of them is a reprint. It still feels top-down, but it's a reprint. Thundering Chariot and Underworld Dreams. So what's the story behind Thundering Chariot?
Thundering Chariot is what I like to call a Time Spiral 2 design, where we take a previous card's mechanic and do a really like a little winking reference to it. So there was a card in Journey into Nyx, which was an equipment called existed, right? So, but like conceptually, a chariot is clearly a vehicle. It's got wheels and people ride around in it. So when it was time to make Theros Beyond Death, I thought, oh, let's remake this card, but in vehicle form. So I made a vehicle that has First Strike and Trample and Haste. 3/3 sounded like about the right size for that, where you would want to crew that up. And so we now have a little Time Spiral 2 card in Theros Beyond Death.
Nice.
Very cool.
And Underworld Dreams. This was I've been playing for a long time. I know you guys have too. So this was one of the more exciting reprints to me when I saw the file, and then I was like, oh, and it's an uncommon.
Yeah,
too?
that was
What's
crazy.
going on here?
Yeah.
Right. Underworld Dreams is a classic card, first printed in Legends, which I
Yeah.
believe was the fourth Magic set,
Sure.
the fourth Magic set ever. And so it's this enchantment that has a nice ability here. It deals damage to people who draw cards, and it has a totally reprintable template. It looks like a totally modern Magic design, which cannot be said of every card from the Legends expansion.
Instead of very few cards from Legends.
And
true.
its casting cost is just tailor-made for a set that's about devotion and enchantments, right? Like this just feels very much at home here. And of course, the name, Underworld Dreams, this set is so much about the underworld.
Like if this card hadn't previously existed, it's not that far off from something you guys would have just designed.
I think so.
For Theros especially, yeah.
And it's so satisfying when we find the perfect reprint that is like mechanically and creatively just a perfect match. It's one of the very fun things that we get to do. Usually when I'm leading a set, I just go through my Magic encyclopedia and look at every Magic card just to see, is there anything here? And every once in a while I'll find just the perfect gem that is the exact right reprint for the right time.
Nice. Well, next I want to talk about the only god we didn't see in the previous Theros set. So, Zool, if you're distracted at work, come back. We're going to talk about Klothys, God of Destiny. So we had a couple people ask about this card. So this was the missing god from the original Theros block.
Right. When we first went to Theros, there were 14 gods. Nice round Magic the Gathering number, right?
Yeah, totally.
We love our multiples of 7, right?
They're the best.
Yeah.
They're the thing I like most about Magic is the
For the
multiples
days of the
7.
week.
There was
Yeah.
a temple called Temple of Abandon. Not really sure who was in charge of that. What was that a temple to? I don't know. And then in between Born of the Gods and Journey into Nyx, the Planeswalker Xenagos had a wild party that caused him to ascend to godhood, and he became the red-green god of Theros, bringing us up to a nice round 15 gods. But presumably somebody must have been the red-green god before Xenagos
Must have
did
vacated
that.
that
Like,
slot,
where did this temple come from? Who was in charge of this? So everybody in the department, I think, was pretty interested in the idea of like, okay, let's find out about this person. Where could they have been? And hanging out in the underworld seemed like a good place. It was like, where did the camera in our story not really go? The underworld. Here's this missing person. And we never really had a sort of Persephone analog, which is this goddess that goes back and forth between the underworld and the realm of mortals. So So we thought, okay, we're going to have a new goddess, and she'll have been hanging out in the underworld. And we moved a little bit away from the Persephone archetype, which is more about like seasonal change, and more into the god of destiny. But that was sort of the impetus for creating Clothis.
How much of this was known during the original Theros or leading up to exploring the new Theros?
Not really any of it.
Okay, so it was just one of those things. It's like, it'd be cool if we filled in this hole in the future, but we're going to leave that for future.
Yeah,
I don't think either of you were around for original.
I was around. I was.
Yeah, I was too.
Yeah,
So it was actually the
both
first
here.
set that I worked
Okay,
on.
fair enough.
Yeah, I was on the design team for all 3 sets in Theros Beyond.
Okay.
So, but yeah, pretty much nothing was known. We were just like, it was just clear that there was an empty space there, and people like to complete patterns, both here in the building and in our audience. So like we realized that this would definitely, if it was going to satisfy us, it would satisfy certain sectors of the audience as well.
Okay.
So an interesting note about the development of the card for Clothis is that it was described, I think, early on that it would be the god of fate and destiny. So one of the early abilities that we tried out actually had a random element to it. I think
Okay.
it was something along the lines of like putting a +1/+1 counter on a random creature you control and dealing damage to a random creature an opponent controls. But we found after playtesting with it, it was extremely onerous to randomize that every turn. You'd have to roll a die and maybe re-roll it if there was an odd number, strange number of creatures or whatever. And then B, it just wasn't very satisfying for random elements like that to determine the outcome of games. So we moved away from that. And the final ability ended up having still some element of that where you're doing a different thing depending on which card you exile from a graveyard. So capturing a little bit of that, there are different outcomes that can happen, but in a more deterministic and satisfying way.
Okay. Let's move to talking about some of the answers you see in this set. So part of what play design does, which is not the teams you're on, right? I know you interact with them, obviously.
During this time, I was the technical lead
You
for
were
play
the
design.
play design. Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of what play design is it seeds answers to things that they know are in standard or are coming. So let's talk about a couple of those. One of you kind of pass over it at first, but Whirlwind Denial is actually kind of a key card. How'd that come about?
Yeah, this was a card we specifically added to the file after we saw roughly 9 months ago standard, where Hydroid Krasis was really breaking out. A card that we knew would see play, but was seeing a bit more play than we expected. So we wanted to add some answers to it there. So it's kind of tricky in that Hydroid Krasis' ability triggers when you cast the spell. So we needed to kind of come up with a creative template that could counter both the creature itself and also the effect that it was having there. So this spell actually counters like sort of all the spells, all the abilities that are on the stack at the same time. And with the added benefit that this could be something that you might use against like storm cards, in other contexts. And just a nice card in general to have around at a reasonable power level. It's not overbearing, but it's a decent answer, that's there if you need it.
Now, did you say that this was added about 9 months ago?
Sorry, it was as a reaction to, what we were seeing in standard, back
that
then,
seems pretty late in the process.
It was fairly late in the process. That's something that, obviously not all the cards are added there, but we have flexibility up until, around that point where sometimes we'll take a card that's already in the file that has art and maybe repurpose it to something where the art still works, but it's a more direct answer to what's going on. I think in this case it was a counterspell that was doing something slightly different, and then we kind of just tailored it to that answer. Yep.
It also has some of the best flavor text in the set and some of the blankiest flavor text I've seen.
I honestly don't even know what the
It's
flavor
no, no, and no.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Fair enough.
Let's talk next about Arasta of the Endless Web, which,
Oh, I'm so excited for this card.
besides being a cool spider, is actually a card you seeded to deal with a specific deck style.
Yeah, so again, about a year ago in Standard, we were seeing decks based around Crackling Drake and casting a bunch of spells, Niv Mizzet, that style of red-blue spells deck. And so we wanted to have something here where if that deck was still strong after the rotation, because a lot of the cards came from GRN, that we would have something there to kind of answer that. And this is a decent solution for that.
And you'll notice they're 1/2 spiders, so that the Niv
1/1.
Mizzet ping doesn't just kill them.
Got to spend
That's
2
cute.
pings on that.
That's cute. Yep. Also happens to be a cool legendary spider that can go in Commander.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to running it.
Yeah, I've got a Spider Tribal Commander deck that wants to say hello.
Oh,
for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Next up, let's talk about one of my favorite cards in the set for obvious reasons, Shatter the Sky. So we moved
So surprising.
Shocking. Some time ago, we publicly kind of said we're moving away from 4-mana Wraths.
Yep.
And then Kaya's Wrath came around, and now this. So talk a little bit about the changing philosophy there.
Yeah, so I guess starting from the point where at once upon a time 4-mana Wraths were just a staple in Standard, I think just because of the happenstance of that's what Wrath of God originally cost, and it kept getting reprinted for so many years, people just kind of got used to, hey, this is what a Wrath costs.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, we asked ourselves the question, is this what a Wrath should cost? Because it's just really, having Wrath of God in Standard is just really powerful and impressive against decks that play a lot of creatures. So we kind of took a break from 4-mana Wraths for a bit, and we tried out variations of 5-mana Wraths that had additional upside on them, like Planar Outburst or Fumigate being examples of those. And we were okay with where we were in that spot, but ultimately after living in that world for a few years, we felt like the power level of those types of sweepers was just a hair under what we were going for. So we wanted to kind of land somewhere in between the Wrath of God and Fumigate type space. So my idea was to try going back and having 4-mana Wraths again, and the first experiment with that was Kaya's Wrath, where obviously the sort of the downside there is that it's so color intensive that either you have to build your deck around it and be really restrictive in your colors, or sometimes you don't get to cast it on turn 4. Here, I was again willing to experiment now with a mono white one, but the thing that I want to solve for is that I really like having Wraths in the environment as countermeasure against decks that go super wide with lots of small creatures, but it's kind of a shame that it also takes care of all the big creatures also, because we want there to be design space where you'll actually play big creatures in your standard deck sometimes. So this is kind of solving for that, where it does sweep all the creatures, but if your opponent is playing some big creatures mixed in, that they get a little compensation there. But also on the other end, if you happen to sweep your own creature, or maybe even have an indestructible god in play, or a card like Gideon or something like that, you can actually take advantage of it too. So it's a little bit of a kiss curse type thing.
Yeah, I'd have to play creatures in my deck. I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's not the Blake way.
It's
not the Blake way. Unless it's Maul Drifter.
Unless it's Maul Drifter. It's not really a creature.
He's going to the graveyard.
It's kind of a, it's
Yeah,
kind
exactly.
of a
Blake's never casting Maul Drifter for anything but a book.
So we spent some time talking about Elspeth, Sun's Nemesis, but let's talk a little bit about the other Planeswalkers too. So let's start with Ashiok, who's another returning character, and then we'll move to Calyx. The Ashiok that's printed in this Theros looks a lot different than the original Ashiok Planeswalker card. How'd you arrive at this design?
Well, we knew that the really fun thing to my mind about Ashiok is you get to play with your opponent's spells. Like, that is really fun for people who like a lot of variance from game to game, right? You can bring the same deck to F&M, but each matchup is very different because you never know what you're going to get. And so we thought it would be really fun to make an Ashiok that makes nightmare tokens that somehow help you kind of do Ashiok's thing, help you get the spells.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything Ethan said. It's worth noting that sort of the first Ashiok design, both Ashioks, involve basically exiling your opponent's cards and being able to cast them. The first design was lower on the mana curve. It was a 3-mana design, and it sort of protected itself by accruing loyalty really quickly, which if you have too much of that in Standard, I think most would agree that that can not be the healthiest play pattern. So we wanted to go with something a little bit higher on the curve that had more of a traditional, it can make tokens to defend itself type of a gameplay there. So this was kind of just a natural outcome of that.
These are some strong token making abilities. +1 to make it 2/3.
Yep.
It's really insane.
A 2/3 with an extra ability, yeah.
It's a 5-mana Planeswalker. Though.
It's true. It's true. It takes a lot to get into play if you're a 5-mana Planeswalker.
All right, we're running out of time, so I want to get to some questions from fans. Ethan, we talked about this one a little bit beforehand. Dryad of the Elysian Grove.
Right.
Not a Dryad.
Right.
It is a
take a look at
nymph
that card.
creature type. What's the story there?
All right. So it's a little bit of a convoluted story.
Okay.
But when Richard Garfield first made Magic the Gathering. Right. So let's look at the type line here: enchantment creature nymph.
Yep.
And then let's take a look at Richard Garfield's original Dryad.
That may be tough to pull. Does he have that?
He's got it.
He's got it?
He's got
Okay,
it.
there we go.
Okay, so if you look at the type line here, it says summon nymph. So Richard Garfield knew what he was doing. He
Yep.
put Summon Nymph on here. Subsequent printings of Shinoded Dryads and all later Dryads said Summon Dryad, or once we switched to what was it, 6th edition rules, it was
Yeah.
Creature M-dash
Yeah.
Dryad. And then when we went to Theros for the first time, we all realized, oh, we need to have more than just Dryads here. We need Oreads and Alceids and Lampads and gosh,
Everybody's favorite.
yeah, all those
creature
things,
types.
all the
They're
different,
they're
all the
asking for
different kinds of
constantly.
nymphs.
Yeah.
And they couldn't all have the creature type Dryad because that's just weird. Why would an Oread have the Dryad creature type? That's crazy. So
Unfathomable.
it really is.
Yeah.
So we decided to bring back the nymph creature type as Richard Garfield intended.
Yep.
And then we had the weird situation of like, but yes, some of these nymphs are green and they are in fact Dryads. So what we put on the type line for those was enchantment creature nymph Dryad. So like we covered all our bases, everybody gets everything. Somehow this new card slipped through the cracks and it is just a nymph. This is just an error and it's aesthetically displeasing. But
Surprise ending to the story.
rest assured, top people are looking into it.
No.
And the appropriate steps will be taken.
Someone's going to be fired. is what you're saying. Okay. Good. Love
No,
to
this
hear
one
that.
just slipped past everybody. Every once in a while, there's something where it's like everybody looked at this card and nobody noticed that something was wrong. I'm sorry to say that's what happened here.
R&D, they're people too.
To err is creature type human.
Yeah.
That's right.
We had a very excited question on Twitter about Nessian Boar because it is bigger than the Titans. How did that card come to be?
That's a great question. I wish I remembered the exact sequence of events here, but I do know at one point there was a smaller version of a similar card, the Nessian Boar, in the set. I think it was like a 5/4, I want to say. And then I believe it was just toward the end of the process, we were just looking at sort of the balance of creature sizes and cards for different player psychographics, and we decided we needed to timmy something up a little bit, meaning make it bigger and splashier. And this was the card to do it, so we just made a bigger version of the design. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. This when it wrestles with a Titan, they both died.
I mean, this card is based on, I believe, the Erymanthian boar from mythology, which was wrestling that thing to the ground or something, was one of Heracles' 12 labors.
Right.
So this needs to be worthy of Heracles, and I think it is.
Chad is reminding me that I promised we'd talk about all three planeswalkers, and we skipped Calyx.
We did.
Okay.
So Calyx is a new character
Right.
that figures pretty prominently in the story behind these cards. So talk about where Calyx came from. Was he there at the start?
Calyx was not there from the start, but pretty early on in Vision design, we realized that we were going to want an enchantment-themed planeswalker, and we wanted it to be a new character, somebody with like a dynamic visual design that would like what if they wanted to be in the Netflix show or something? Like we would want them to be somebody that looks cool and has cool powers that have a good visual aspect to them, and we also wanted them to sort of be sort of counterpoint or an antagonist to Ajani from a certain point of view. Like Ajani is this green-white planeswalker, and this character is going to be a green-white planeswalker. Ajani's mad at the gods and like has allied himself with the Leonin of Theros, who are like enemies of the gods. It's hard to be an atheist in Theros, but they try. But Calyx was created directly by a god. He's a Nyx-born, and he's working directly for Klothys as sort of an agent of Klothys to sort of rein in all these people who are defying fate. And so he is following Elspeth around the multiverse, trying to get her to go back where she belongs, which is in the underworld.
He doesn't do very well.
Nope. Elspeth
Doesn't work out
is
super well for him.
vastly more powerful and experienced than Calyx, and so he's going to have to level up a little bit before he's going to be able to do anything about
Well, you know, it's a
this
shame the level up is
situation.
not in this set.
Well, we'll probably print another Calyx somewhere else. I can't promise to say the same thing about the level up mechanic.
Ian, how do you arrive at this suite of abilities?
So we knew as soon as the character was introduced to the set that it was going to be the enchantment themed planeswalker. Obviously, Theros very heavily associated with enchantments. Makes sense to have a planeswalker that plays in that space. It's really natural to go to the impulse for an enchantment type of space there to help enable an enchantment heavy deck. And I forget how we came up with this the minus ability, but basically making an enchantment into an Oblivion Ring is something that really delighted people when they saw it, and that stuck pretty quickly. I will say during testing earlier in the stages, we actually did try I'm not sure if I should tell you guys this or not, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
Okay.
We tested a version of Calyx that actually had Constellation on it.
If you hadn't told him I was
And so when
I feel like somebody else already said that publicly.
Okay,
so
fine.
I think,
I'm in the clear then. And so the way it worked is whenever an enchantment entered the battlefield under your control, he gained a loyalty, actually, which was pretty cool. And obviously we had to tweak all the numbers around that so that you didn't immediately rush to the ultimate super fast. But we tried that for a while, and it was fun. We were enjoying it. But ultimately, the set was very, very wordy, and the card that we had been testing just didn't fit on a Magic card in English, let alone in some of the other languages. So at a certain point, we had to decide, which of these abilities do we want to keep, and ultimately, we preserved the rest of the card, but not the Constellation aspect.
Yeah, if there were times during this set's development where it was the wordiest Magic set I've ever seen.
And actually,
We had to do a whole article about it, in fact.
Have to. Mark Gottlieb wrote actually one of the best articles we've run in a really
so
long
good.
time.
I love that article.
It's so good.
Yeah, if you look for Mark Gottlieb's preview article from Theros Beyond Death on our website, it's a really good article. It's just a fun read, but it's also really insightful and a really good look at some of the process stuff that you guys go through to arrive at. It's just not something most people think about, how wordy is a set. But you guys
We track that. That is a metric that we track.
All right. We are at 3 o'clock, but I'm going to ask one question because someone really wants to know how Dalekos changed through the card design process.
Oh my goodness.
Can we pull it up here?
So,
Refresher here. Yeah, so
This was another one that didn't fit on the card,
Yes,
right?
yes. An earlier version of this was, again, wordy to the point of we can't actually print this wordy. There's wordy hey, the set's getting a little complicated, and then there's wordy we actually can't do
Physically
this.
cannot
Yes,
put the
physically
card.
cannot.
We would
put
have
the
to
cards.
increase the text box size in order to actually get it on the
So
card.
at a certain point, we just kind of had to be okay, we like this slot in the file, but we need to just come up with a new card. And I believe, the call was sent out, the bat signal went up, we called all our best designers in and came up with a bunch of ideas, and this was the one that was picked.
Very cool. All right. Well, we are more than out of time. Thank you guys for joining us. There were more questions. I wish we could have gotten to them, but maybe we'll have you guys on again later, and we'll just talk
I'd be
design
happy
stuff. So thank you, Ethan. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Michelle, for coming on at the start of the show and talking about all kinds of cool stuff that we're doing with and for creators.
And if you want to see more about the creator program, Daily MTG should be an article up there.
The article's up right now.
Excellent.
A lot of opportunities if you're a content creator, so be sure to check that out. Otherwise, we will be back next week. What are we talking about next week?
Life is full of little mysteries, Blake.
It's
It's
be something
We'll
fun.
be here.
We have a plan. I know I've written this out. I just don't remember what it is.
Yeah.
But it'll be great.
It's going to be awesome. Yeah.
we
Can
will
guarantee
see
you that.
We will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.